When you think about heroes in the Bible, you probably picture these figures of perfect faith, perfect lineage. But what if I told you that one of the absolute greatest, a man praised by God himself, has a secret identity? A contradiction so deep, it makes you question everything you thought you knew about what it meant to be an Israelite. Let's dig in and solve this thing. So, meet Caleb, son of Jephunneh. And that quote? Well, that's basically God's personal recommendation letter for him. This comes from that famous story, right? The spying mission into Canaan. 10 spies come back terrified, but not Caleb. He stood firm. His reward for that hard-hearted faith was a guaranteed piece of the promised land. I mean, he is the real deal, the quintessential hero. His entire message was about faith over fear. And by trusting God's promise when pretty much no one else would, Caleb cemented his place in Israel's history as this total legend of courage and loyalty. And listen, he wasn't just some random guy in the crowd. He was handpicked to be the official representative for the tribe of Judah. That's the royal tribe, the one that King David would eventually come from. So Caleb was an insider's insider, right at the very heart of the nation. And you got to remember that, because it's what makes this puzzle so mind-bending. Okay, so here's where the plot really thickens. The Bible, the very book that paints Caleb as this perfect Judahite hero, also gives us this glaring contradiction about who he actually is. It's a mystery that's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. So here it is, in black and white. One verse says crystal clear, Caleb is from the tribe of Judah. But then other verses, just as clearly, call him a Kenizzite. So which is it? He can't be both. Or can he? So what even is a Kenizzite? Well, if you flip back to Genesis, you'll see they're listed among the native Canaanite nations, the people whose land was promised to Abraham's descendants. In other words, they were outsiders. Actually, more than that. They were on the list of people the Israelites were supposed to conquer and drive out. So by definition, they were the enemy. And this brings us right to the heart of the paradox. How can one of Israel's greatest heroes, a leader from the top tribe, also be from an enemy nation he was tasked with conquering? It just doesn't seem possible. Figuring this out is the key to his whole story. All right, to crack this case, we got to put on our detective hats and just look at the evidence, the textual case file that's laid out right there in the Bible. What's so interesting is that the authors didn't try to hide this contradiction. They kept it. So let's see what the clues tell us. And when you lay out the evidence, it's kind of wild. One source says he's a Judahite, plain and simple. But then you have these other sources that keep calling him a Kenizzite. And they even tie that foreign identity directly to his reward, his inheritance. And then, just to make it even more complicated, the book of 1 Chronicles throws in a different Caleb, this one a direct descendant of Judah. It's a real tangled web. Now, this second Caleb from Chronicles, it's probably not just a typo. A lot of scholars think this was a deliberate move by a later writer. See, by putting a Caleb right into the official Judahanite family tree, the author was basically retroactively making the powerful Calebite clan official. It was a way to cement their land claims and their place in the nation's story. It's a literary fix for a real-world political situation. Okay, so we've got all this conflicting evidence. How in the world do we solve this? Well, historical detectives, scholars, have come up with 3 main theories that are all pretty compelling ways to untangle this ancient mystery. Each one gives us a totally different way of looking at it. So here are the top 3 theories. First, you've got clan assimilation. This basically says Caleb's clan was a foreign group that, over time, just merged into the tribe of Judah. The second is the internal sub-clan theory, which argues that Kenizzite wasn't a foreign nation at all, but just a family name, like a smaller clan inside of Judah. And third is the literary historical view, which sees the whole story as being edited over the years for political reasons, to make sure the Calebites' landholdings were seen as legitimate. Now, while they all have some good points, the theory that most scholars land on is clan assimilation. This view suggests that identity back in ancient Israel was a lot more fluid than we might think. It wasn't always just about pure bloodlines. It could also be about who your allies were and where you lived. Caleb's amazing story, then, becomes this powerful theological reason for historical fact. This non-Israelite group became a core part of the nation of Judah. So we've looked at the what and the how, but now we get to the really important part, the so what. Why does this ancient puzzle about one guy's family tree actually matter to us? Well, the answer reveals something incredibly profound at the very heart of the Bible.
When you boil it all down, Caleb's story tells us something truly radical. What matters most is unwavering faith. That's the real ticket to being part of God's people. His wholehearted devotion to God completely overrode where he came from. He wasn't just accepted in spite of being an outsider, he was celebrated because his faith made him the ultimate insider.
And get this, his name is the final perfect clue. The name Caleb is related to the Hebrew word for dog, Caleb, which was often used as an insult for foreigners. But it's also a beautiful play on the Hebrew words kalev, which means all heart or wholehearted. His name literally tells his story. A man who could have been dismissed as an outcast is instead defined forever by his wholehearted faith. It's incredible. And in that way, Caleb becomes this powerful Old Testament model for a much bigger theme that runs through the whole Bible. His complete integration into Israel is like a preview of the New Testament idea of the grafted-in branch, where people from the outside become full members of the community simply through their faith. His story shows this wasn't some new idea, but one that had incredibly deep roots. So in the end, the puzzle of Caleb's identity kind of forces us to look in the mirror and ask a timeless question. Is belonging all about your bloodline, your background, where you're from? Or is it about what you believe and what you're committed to? Caleb's story shouts that the answer has always been faith, and it leaves us wondering, what does it truly mean for any of us to belong?